Hello everyone and welcome. As you can probably tell by the title, this is going to be the first video in a series of videos I do where I recreate famous creators' Minecraft builds. I think a lot of it is going to be centered around the Dream SMP just because a lot of those builds are like readily available in pictures, but I'm thinking about doing other builds such as PewDiePie's Meatball and stuff. So if you're interested in stuff like that, go ahead and press that subscribe button, and if not, that's totally okay. This time around, we'll be doing George's vacation mushroom house that eventually did get burned down. But I tried to really challenge myself this time and do a diagonal build, so it's definitely not going to be exactly the same as George's house, but I did try and take as much reference as I could. The last little note is I couldn't find a ton of reference photos for the outside of this house, so the landscaping I mostly left up to my own design. Okay. And without further ado, let's get on to the build. Okay, so the first thing I did was fill in a bunch of the holes outside of the place where I wanted to build it. That little hill on the left is where I decided to make the house, because George's house did kind of like go into a hill, if I remember correctly, and the pictures served me right. So I just filled in a few of the holes, and then there I'm making the outline in the blue block. Obviously, we're not gonna like make the entire house out of that block because that does not match up with what George did at all. So here I am just getting the basic shape, and once I'm happy with it, I switch over to the back of the house and make that kind of go into the hill. Once I'm happy with that, I switch back to the front of the house and I start getting the inside kind of done. You can't see it a ton, so I apologize for that. But I'm just kind of carving out the inside and getting that all ready for the interior. So there I am, just kind of getting the inside done. It took a few takes, but I did get it to a shape that I like. I finally got to get rid of those god-awful blue blocks, and I switched them to spruce, which is the block that I believe he used from the pictures that I could gather. And then I started working on the archway that his door sat in. Since it is a diagonal build, I did have a lot of trouble with this, but I decided to just make it big, and I didn't end up putting a door in it either. It just ended up being an archway. I then moved on to the windows, which I also had trouble with because you can't stack trapdoors in corners, but I ended up coming up with this design where the trapdoors are just open, so they still reference George's old windows, but they don't look weird. Also, I apologize, I bumped the camera a few times and it did make the build go out of frame. So here I am just finishing up the outside of the house, adding some slabs, adding a little depth. I also decided to put some blocks that could hold mushrooms up in the front so that I could have little mushrooms, like little potted plants or something. And I've just put fences in front of those too. And around now, I realized that the camera has gone out of frame, so I switch it back to the front, and woo, look at how pretty she is. So I just add a few little lanterns, and then the outside of the house is done. As I stated before, I couldn't find a bunch of pictures of the outside of George's house, and so I kind of left that up to me. I did remember there being a little pond out front, so I made a little pond and a bridge. That bridge goes through many iterations, do not worry. So that's what I settle on for now, but I do end up changing it. Then I go on to replace some of the grass with the same mycelium that I used in the front of the house, and kind of pushing back some of the hills and stuff because I wasn't totally happy with the way that I had landscaped it beforehand. Around the time that I am happy with the way that the hills have come together, I start building a fence around the property, which I don't end up keeping because it ended up looking pretty bad. I then go on to work on this little entranceway that's outside of the mushroom house. Again, it's not something that George had at his house, but you know, I gave myself some creative liberties. So I start building that up. I add a mushroom block and the traditional trapdoors that the house has on it as well. So after I was done with that little entryway, I went on to detail the grounds a little bit more. I added a little bit more mycelium because I thought it went well with the rest of the build, and then I added some tall grass and mushrooms. I did end up removing all of the flowers that naturally spawned when I used the bone meal just because I did like the mushroom and grass look. And after this, I moved on to the interior of the house, and unfortunately I did lose a lot of this footage, so you can only really see me doing the walls and the floor. But I did the walls in just the regular spruce, and then I did the floor in a bit of brown mushroom because I thought it made a good floor. And with that, the house was done. So I threw on my favorite shaders pack, and this is it. As you can see, I did take out all of those fences. I think it just made it look a little too constricted, and I didn't like it as much. So I took those out, and I just expanded the mycelium and the tall grass out a little bit to match what I had done inside of the fences. So here's me walking through that little archway. It turned out really nice. I really do like that one. There's the final iteration of the bridge. I didn't like all of the trapdoors and stuff. Here are the windows. I'm kind of proud of these because they really do match George's house. They're just like open windows instead of the closed windows. I thought that was kind of clever of me. So this is the interior. He did have an orange bed, so that's why the orange bed is over there in that corner. And then the only other thing he had in that house was some chests, so that's what I did with that. Okay, editing blue here. I realized I never went over why there's crying obsidian in the walls. When George's house got vandalized, Rambo and Tommy put a bunch of crying obsidian all over the inside of the house, so yeah, that's why that's there. So here is the back of the house. It does kind of like go into the hill, which I enjoy. It makes it look like a little hobbit hole. Here's just a better look at the grounds from up in the sky. And yeah, that's the end of the little house tour. Thank you so much for watching this video all the way to the end. It really means a lot to me considering that this is my first video ever put out on YouTube. If you want to see the other builds that I'm going to do, remaking famous creators' Minecraft houses, don't forget to press subscribe, and if not, I'll see you on your way. Okay, thank you so much. Bye-bye.